we are now going to look at observation, so an observational experiment. So first of all, you've got the difference between a naturalistic observation and a controlled observation. So a naturalistic observation is one where people are studied in their natural setting and the researcher doesn't interfere with what's going on in that setting. So everything is kind of there as normal, it's a natural setting, and the researcher just observes in that setting as it is. In a controlled observation, the researcher could control some variables and could change some variables. Normally, participants know they're being studied, and it's usually conducted within a lab. So in a controlled experiment, the experimenter, as it says in the name, has much more control over variables within the experiment. They have less control in a naturalistic experiment. But in a controlled experiment, participants tend to know they're being observed. They do not know they're being observed in a naturalistic observation. When you are observing, you can either be overt or covert. As in an overt observation, you are openly observing and participants are aware that they are being observed. In a covert observation, you're hidden when you're observing and participants are not aware of you observing them. So again, there could be a difference here in the behaviour of participants. In an overt observation, participants might change their behaviour because they have knowledge that they're being observed. They do not have knowledge in a covert observation. They do not know that they're being observed. You can also get a participant or a non-participant observation. A participant observation is where the researcher becomes part of the group they're observing. So, for example, if you're looking at aggression within a football crowd, the researcher will go and be part of that crowd. So they become a participant in their observation. Non-participant observation, the researcher is separate from the people that they are observing and they do not interact with these people. So in a participant observation, there may be interactions between the researchers and the participants. There is no interactions in a non-participant observation. You might also get a structured or an unstructured observation. In a structured observation, there are clear behavioural categories, there's clear sampling procedures, it's very organised. In an unstructured observation, the researcher doesn't have a system in place for recording information. They just observe all behaviour as it is happening, or film all behaviour as it is happening for organisation later on. So structured, you go in with a plan, you know what you're looking for, there's certain procedures you'll follow. Unstructured, just observe everything that's going on that might be relevant and kind of look at it later on. When you are conducting an observation, you can have behavioural categories. These are things that you intend to look at when you are conducting your observation, and these categories are decided before the observation takes place. It's really, really important to operationalise your categories, so put them in a form that can be measured. So if you're observing behaviour of people in a gym, you can't just say, you're looking for whether they're using the equipment. You need to specify what equipment are you looking for. You're looking at the time they're on, at the number of reps they do. You need to operationalise it, put it in a form that can be measured. Behavioural categories tend to be put in a tally chart, and observers use these tally charts to fill in during the observation. In terms of observations, you can also look at sampling procedures. So sampling in an observation refers to how you gather the data. It's not to do with the participants. Sampling in an observation is about you gathering data. And there are two main types of sampling. There's event sampling and time sampling. Event sampling is where you record a behaviour every time it happens, so every event of a behaviour. So you have a specific time period to observe and you record each event within that time period. This is usually in a structured observation, usually with behavioural categories in a tally chart. Time sampling is where you record behaviours in a given time interval. So for example, you're doing an observation generally for 6 hours, and then every 30 minutes you record everything that happens within a minute's period. So time sampling is looking at recording behaviours in a specific time frame. Time sampling tends to be used when the observation is longer. where you might not be able to see all the behaviours or record all the behaviours over a long time period. Event sampling tends to be used during a shorter time period, or if an observation is more structured. This is an exam question that looks at sampling. So you've got the question, it's about green space in urban areas. You've got the STEM there, and then you've got the question, identify the behaviour sampling method used by the students. Have a think about what the answer might be. So for this experiment, you would be using event sampling.